Well, hello. Welcome again to the Sports Reform Podcast. I'm Scott, along with JT and Jeff, and this week we're going to be diving into some runaway contracts, some issues grinding along, seeing what works, what doesn't, what's a good idea, bad idea, what we could throw in and say how they could work better, what improvements we could make. We're just going to have a fun time pounding it out, so we'll get right to it. Cue the music.
Okay, so we're talking big league contracts today. It is the off season for three of the big four sports leagues in America. So all the contract news is starting to trickle in. Specifically, the NHL just started their free agency period recently. So did the NBA, or are they about to start? They'll probably have started by the time we post this video. Yeah. All right, so there's a big. I won't say controversy necessarily, but kind of the big focus of any contract, other than perhaps salary cap hit, is guaranteed money. And, given what sports in America are, obviously some of the totals are growing quite exorbitant.
You have things like recently the biggest news, I think, for contracts was Derek Carr signing the biggest contract of all time now in the NFL, making the max of $125 million over 5 years, with a total of that with $40 million being fully guaranteed at signing, and he had an injury guarantee of $70 million at signing.
And Steph Curry's up there too now with that guaranteed contract he just signed. It's $201 million guaranteed over the next 5 years. So
you have $40 million a year.
Pretty much, yeah. They're getting ridiculous right now.
Mm-hmm. And even Connor McDavid just signed the biggest contract in NHL history. Not as high as those either, but it's an average salary cap hit of $12.5 million. Let me see, what is guaranteed on that one?
Does anyone know what the average American income is for a year? Because that'd be a good
$45,000. Or actually, that's the median income.
Yeah, median
income.
Yeah. I think a lot of people would take that kind of money. And I think the
I
level
would say no.
The level of money, like the amount, is something that could be debated all on its own with a full spiel. I don't think we can give justice to that argument. I think it's just the percentage really of the guaranteed money of the contracts is where we're really lying in, or at least that's where
time. We'll see how this plays out.
It depends, but you look at a contract like Derek Carr's when it's $25 million, really averages out to $25 million per year, and so he's making really it's boils down over a year and a half, so a year and a third, I think, or 2/3. If I could do math, it's a sports podcast, not a math podcast. And I can just jump right into as far as my thoughts on the guaranteed money. It's getting a little ridiculous, and I think all leagues are kind of getting to the point where. And I know there's a lot of business behind it as well, and I know that the players themselves, there's a lot of things that have come along, especially in the past decade, from the players' perspective that's really protected the players to where it's not just big corporations sitting on the little guy, that sort of thing.
I don't know, you're making $40 million a year. How little are you?
Right.
And I mean, with certain names, and it's interesting to me with someone like Derek Carr, because he's not a Peyton Manning, he's not a Tom Brady.
Though when he disappeared, so did the Raiders.
Yeah. So, you have this happening for it's really, like we said, across the big four sports. I'm not too familiar with some of the other ones like soccer and a few of the other.
It doesn't happen too often. I mean, they'll come back to you get the old EPL guys will come play over in the MLS for a quick payday, but that's you pretty much get paid your worth.
I don't think any of the any of the English or European soccer leagues even have any kind of a salary cap structure.
I'm not sure on that.
That'll be the international reform podcast next week. As we'll get on that. Those not in the US of A. But going back just to the thought for the guaranteed money again, in my mind, we have to continually push, for me, the business aspect of the leagues. As much as I want to be a fan of the sports and just the action, whatever field, whatever surface you're playing on, obviously the fans are doing it for the fun, but if you're an owner, you're the manager, even the coach, the players, you have to think about it as, well, it's livelihood. Same way we would think about our jobs. Our day jobs, we carry the weight of going into our 9 to 5 a lot differently than just any other thing we do. Like if we were just playing a sport on the side, for them, that's how they bring in the dough. Some of them, a lot of dough. My biggest beef with it, though, is the performance issue of actually doing the job.
Mm-hmm.
If you're being paid to be a quarterback and you don't play, now I know there's a lot more. This is the Scott's really simple, stupid side of the argument. I know there's a lot more details, but just from a straightforward perspective, $40 million guaranteed, and I'm just using Derek Carr as an example. This is across the board. Can go for any sport, even if it's $1 million guaranteed. It could be $15,000 guaranteed on one of the smallest fields ever. It doesn't matter to me. If you're getting paid, and then full well knowing the teams that anything could happen between now and game 1, and you don't see a minute of playing time. Mm-hmm. From a business standpoint, you're not doing your job. And I know there's a lot of things to protect athletes. There's rules. They have things like don't ride motorbikes. You can't do certain activities. Right. You're limited to practices. You get the, no tackles, all those sorts of things, to where they protect their big money players. From the league's perspective, they basically wrap you in bubble wrap until week 1. And even then,
and if you're Tom Brady, you're still wrapped in bubble wrap.
My thoughts on the guaranteed contracts, I'll jump in, is I think they're getting out of hand. Now, I would put a caveat. If you have a career-ending injury, I would be all right with some kind of percentage of your contract still being paid out. Because you don't have the intent to get hurt when you're playing these sports. It just happens. Mm-hmm. So I could see that you're putting your body, there was something there to be paid out. But if you suck and you're getting cut, you shouldn't be getting paid. Yahoo Sports had an article, looking at the date here, back in May. It took, they called it, I think it was like the Bobby Bonilla team, and they said, all right, so if you take his contract and looked at former All-Stars who are still who are still getting paid out, they've been released by their teams, it was like 12 or 11 players would make 124 million, ranking just behind the Rockies' 131 million, which is just below the league average of 138 million. So this is a team of people who aren't playing. Mm-hmm. Some haven't played in 5-6 years, and they're still above about a third of the league, 2/3 of the league, because that average is really high because of the Yankees and all the Red Sox, the teams that are spending more money. That's ridiculous.
Yep.
I mean, I totally agree. It's guaranteed money starting to get out of hand. Although I can tell you from the player's perspective, if they had their way, their entire contract would be guaranteed. There wouldn't be any incentives. Obviously, the owners and the teams want it to be all incentive based, where you make the league minimum and guaranteed money, and then you hit so many home runs a year. Here's an extra couple million, or
you win the championship. Yeah, here's a additional bonus. And I do agree with Jeff's thought on the some percentage, because you think for someone who's dedicated, maybe they went through all 4 years of college, they've done nothing but football. They wouldn't have a livelihood. So there should be something
insurance policy, basically.
Really to protect them from that sort of thing.
Or something where they get the league minimum salary until they're until old or something.
Right.
Yeah. But even then, like you'd mentioned, Josh, with these weird things that happened, there was with not only cuts but trades as well, you have sometimes, because of guaranteed money, players playing for different teams and still being paid by their former teams and getting these weird double salaries, and there's really weird contract loopholes. I know a few seasons ago for the Bears, our highest paid player was on a different team. Good job.
Or you'll have,
Bears.
you see it in baseball, like, hey, I'll trade you this guy and this guy, but I want you to carry X% on that guy's contract.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for a while, Dan Uglow was the highest paid player on the Braves while being the second baseman for the Nationals.
Yep.
The backup second baseman
Right, yeah.
for the
There was a
Nationals.
reason the Braves got rid of him, for the record.
Yeah, it was.
That was a rough season.
But, I mean, I think you could see the NFL maybe go to some sort, because right now their guaranteed money is really, it's pretty much that signing bonus, and then the next year, because assuming you sign your contract, you're going to play the next season. That's kind of how that goes. But after that, there's very little guaranteed. I mean, you'll get some as you go, but it drops dramatically because of the way their cut structure works. So you could see their players settling for a portion, but the way baseball and basketball is now, those players would never come back to that.
I mean, the same thing with, to a lesser extent, hockey. I think Chris Pronger, who got, he officially retired or unofficially retired, I think in like 2007. He's still on the Arizona Coyotes payroll, and he got traded last year from the Flyers.
So it all works out logically, right?
He's still I think he's still making somewhere north of $1 million a year to do absolutely nothing.
Well, what other solutions do you guys have that? What could be the actual reform part of this? Where would you see benefits and changes, and what would those changes look like?
Well, you're going to have kind of that tension because the players want all guaranteed money, and the owners and the people who actually have to pay these contracts, if they had their way, they'd have no guaranteed money. So obviously, there's probably not a solution that'll make everybody happy. But
with that aside, what would make the most sense?
You could possibly
guys?
have some kind of a system where you had, and I don't know how feasible this would be, but where you had like a split level salary cap, where you had a guaranteed money salary cap and then an incentive salary cap that was much higher, something like that. So we'll take the NBA or something. So your guaranteed money per year for your entire team is $10 million or $15 million, but you can offer up to $100 million in incentives, or I don't know what that ratio would be.
Yeah, that wouldn't be too bad. I mean, right now the NBA soft cap is going to be $99 million. So, I mean, you could.
And I know that would start getting a little bit dicey, especially that when you get into trading contracts where the team B, you have team X and Y, and team Y picks up so much of the guaranteed money and so many of the incentives. But
I think the only real sport the two sports that's the biggest issue would be like hockey and the NFL, where they have hard caps. There's no luxury tax. MLB and NBA, you can kind of do those contracts a little bit more willy-nilly. What's it, in 2020, the Warriors are going to be paying more in luxury tax than their salaries. They're going to be paying like $390 million.
But they'll have the champions to show it.
They better. Somebody going to get fired if not.
Yeah.
So, I like you said, there may be a split level. Excuse me. Maybe the NBA or the NFL, coming up with some kind of insurance policy. It's going to have to be people working together. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Especially between the players, and we keep coming back.
There's a game of what I like to call CBA chicken every 8 to 10 years in every major sports league.
Well, you had even mentioned the NBA players being a little restless right now with their contracts.
Or NFL.
Oh, it was NFL? I misunderstood.
Richard Sherman said the only way we're going to get paid more money is to strike. The NFL will call your bluff on that. I mean, they did it.
Especially with Roger Goodell at the head right
now.
Yeah. He doesn't take...
The one good thing he does, he holds the line. Now, it kind of sucked with the replacement refs, but he held his word. And what was it? The 90s, they did the replacement players?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, right now, if you look around, you have all the CFL talent that would come over in a heartbeat. You have some decent arena talent. You always have kids coming out of college. There would be enough talent to keep a league through a strike. Would it be pretty?
Probably not.
No. But like we talked
it would
about,
be the minor league.
Right. Like we talked about with episodes 3 and 4, we're desperate for football in this country. It would work.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, if you took away Sunday's religion, people would find another religion in some other football.
I mean, I kind of want to touch on Sherman's comments here. I kind of did some rough numbers here. That his statement of NFL players needing to get paid more, it'll kind of loop back to some logic, I hope. So what I did was I took as best I could find the gross revenue, either the hard revenue or projected revenue for the NFL, NBA, and MLB, because those are the ones with the ridiculous contracts right now. Then I took their 2017 gross total of player salaries. The reason I did that is because you're spending 2016's money in 2017. Mm-hmm. So what I wanted to find is what percentage of gross revenue is being paid to the players. So with these huge contracts coming out in the NBA, it's only 34% of the gross revenue that's being paid out to the players. So they were projected to make $8 billion, and then they're paying out $2.73 billion. A lot of money. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that. MLB actually has the highest payout. They were projected to make $10 billion, and they're paying out $4.666 billion for 46%. The NFL was projected, or actually grossed, $14 billion and pays out $5.1 billion for a total of 36.4%. So they're actually getting paid more percentage-wise than the NBA gets paid. So, Richard Sherman, he's not a dumb guy. He was very loudmouthed and opinionated, but he has the education from Stanford and all that. Numbers say you're making it. Granted, how many people are on the NBA roster? It's
15 max.
15 to right now, teams have 90 on their rosters.
And the NFL has a much higher salary cap, though. But the
salary cap for the NFL is $167 million.
But yeah, you go up more than 3 times in roster size, but you only go up 50% in salary, or just over 50% in salary cap.
Yeah, 67%. Yeah.
So and NFL players play 16
right
regular
in the amount of games.
Year, and NBA players play 82.
One thing I find interesting, and I don't know if the NBA can continue this, is the conglomeration of superstars. Will we reach a point where the superstars are so condensed that the other markets can't make it? Because if you think before, you had Durant and Westbrook in Oklahoma City, you had the Splash Brothers in Oakland, you had the LeBron, you had D Wade. They're all kind of spread out. Mm-hmm. So if I was Minnesota or Utah with no superstars, I still got a bunch of teams coming in that had superstars. So I would go to more games because I would go to like the 8 or 10 games. But now they're all coming together, 2 to 4 teams. Now I'm only going to go 2. So are these smaller markets going to be able to hang on in this superstar league?
Well, unless there's more superstars right now. Granted, you have to kind of define superstar,
yeah, I would say based on salary, but Tim Hardaway Jr. just signed a $70 million contract.
It's all relative.
Yeah.
It's all up in the air at that point.
One thing, more to that point though. I mean, we're not excusing hideously bad contracts here or anything. We will call it like we see it and say no, that's a horrible deal when it is. But I mean, to the point. Well, actually, and I think back when it was a thing, Grantland did something like this to where, like LeBron James, if you actually wanted to pay him, his market value would be making roughly $200 million a year.
Right, a year, not
over
5,
not over 5, but a year. But that is the amount of revenue that he brings into the NBA.
Right,
and that kind of goes. Typically, you see like a 30% mark. It's complicated economics, but based on like a going market rate of the American economy of what a worker is worth to their company. A fair market value for the top talent in the NBA: LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Westbrook,
Curry.
Curry. They would be making upwards of $200 million a year.
Right, and then your 14th guy's making nothing.
Pennies.
Penny.
Right. I mean, he's not bringing money to the table.
No,
you don't see those jerseys for sale.
You might have niche players that are local markets, kind of
Right.
like what Kyle Korver was to Atlanta for a few years, even though he got traded to Cleveland.
He at least produced.
Yeah,
and still produces.
But still, I mean, it's like it's the
Yeah.
He was probably in that top. I'd at least say top 30 players in the league.
I wouldn't go that high just because there's 30 teams. So
That's.
Yeah.
He was. He made the All-Star team.
Yeah.
Obviously every year. But yeah, in terms of his revenue to the league, he'd probably be worth about what you and I are making in our regular 9-to-5 job.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I'm very curious how the NBA survives. And their money goes up, so the TV contract, and like we had talked about with scheduling, you have it's TNT or TBS has an exclusive night of the week where they have the only NBA game played. Mm-hmm. And now you get these guys sitting out of this game. Is this TNT? If I'm them or TBS, whoever that is, I'm taking my money back.
Yeah.
So now you're going to be paying out players based on $8 billion revenue. That is going to drop back down to the 5 range because they doubled within the last 3 years. They went from like 4.8 to 5.2 to 8. Mm-hmm. So if that TV money goes away, the league goes away real quick on these contracts.
Unless the league decides to attempt a contraction. Now, I don't think they'll ever do that. But if that started happening and they said, oh crud, they're having just these big market super teams and a bunch of also rans. Okay,
it'll be interesting. The Warriors will keep a lot of teams in business.
Yeah,
because of that revenue sharing, they're paying out that luxury tax.
Unless one of the things I've always advocated for is the promotion relegation system you see in European soccer. Yeah. So make the league a 2-tier league with promotion relegation. That'll never happen. Realistically,
you see the rich in the EPL or whatever. The Barclays Premier League. Imagine what the rich would be in the NBA. Because if I'm a player that might go to a team that's getting relegated, heck no, I'm not going to stay there. I'll sit out my year. And I'll sign with somebody else.
Yep. But more to that point, it's kind of ironic that if you think about it, the European leagues are very capitalistic in nature. The American sports leagues are very socialist in nature, where you have your draft pick where the worst team gets the top pay. In kind of a stark contrast to their respective economic policies.
Well, the United States is way.
Well, yeah, but
we're not a political podcast.
No, I've always just found that fascinating. But yeah, I've always said more promotion relegation in American sports leagues. It will never realistically happen, but it's fun.
I could see the MLS maybe adopting it because they're developing the USL. I mean, Minnesota just made that jump.
Yeah, and they're trying to almost emulate European soccer. I mean, not necessarily from a business perspective.
Right, but hey, we still have our playoffs.
Yeah.
Yep. Anything can happen.
Well, I think one thing it goes back to, we hinted at it earlier, but the money aspect just getting a little ridiculous. The problem has to come from somewhere, and you think about just the amounts of money, and like you're talking about, especially when it's concentrated, it can be really toxic. And I think that the leagues really need to step in at some point. And I know the Yankees have kind of made a joke of this from so long because they buy the best team.
Like the New York Yankees, the best team money can buy.
Yeah, it's been
Boston
a joke.
Wasn't much better, just saying.
No. Yeah, and
three words: the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yeah, they're always the concentrated teams, and then you have the small market teams that are never going to be able to reach that. But like you said, when you have teams where if you were to count the superstars and you were to say, okay, there's these 10 elite athletes, and even on teams like basketball, it's a lot worse for the league because the teams themselves are smaller. But say, even in the NFL, if you only had really for fantasy guys out there, like if you don't get one of these 3 quarterbacks, you're doomed for your fantasy season.
Yeah.
But in the same way, for the actual league, you realize, well, if you don't have and there is a lack of parity, I think, between players. You think about right now, if you were to think about the best quarterback in the NFL and then the worst quarterback in the NFL, there is a vast difference. And you take that over to a league where the teams are a lot smaller, where you have hockey and basketball, where you really only have 5 or 6.
In basketball, you can carry a team with one guy. You can't really do that in football.
I don't think you can do it in any other sport. Other than tennis.
Yeah. Hockey to a certain extent.
Hot goalie can carry you.
Yeah. Not nearly to the extent that a basketball team can be carried by one guy.
Let's face it, why will LeBron stay in the East next year?
So he doesn't have to, so he doesn't have to face the Warriors that much, but so he can essentially dominate the conference.
Right. I mean, I don't know where he'll end up. New York looks good with Melo, and you bring over Durant because they're both going to be free agents. You'll have that conspiracy decision part 3. Mm-hmm. But he's going to stay in the East. I would not personally mind Atlanta being decent for a year or two. Just saying, if Steve Curran or whoever the GM is listening. Or no,
if LeBron signs with Atlanta, I will eat this computer.
They'll have money to spend because they ain't got nobody on the team this year.
Yep. No, but you're absolutely right. We talked about it with our predictions, even where it's even sad for the league when everyone just assumes that it's these 2 teams in the finals, and that makes for a really boring regular season as well for all teams. If I'm the Atlanta fan, the diehard Atlanta fan, I'm not. But if I was, and you see, like you're saying in the East, we don't have a shot, it's going to deter me from...
I think that's a big reason why they didn't try to go re-sign Carroll 3 years ago, why they let Millsap go, why they let Hardaway go, why spend the money right now.
Yeah. And I also think that Atlanta, by and large, has almost... They have the big market mentality, but they don't have the big market appeal.
No, and it'll be interesting. Have you guys heard the renovations they're doing to the arena?
I haven't heard all the specific ones. I know they're dropping a lot of money on it.
Yeah, they're going to get rid of a lot. You know how the one wall is all luxury boxes?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So they're going to redo that end. There's going to be it was a country artist, like a Luke Bryan or something like that themed restaurant. I don't think it was Luke Bryan, but that element. There's going to be a Top Golf simulator down on the floor. There's going to be a barber shop. There's going to be another a dance club or something down on the floor. So it's going to be a very interesting appeal maybe to get players, hey, you come, it's a party game.
But and granted, I don't play in the NBA, so I don't know their mentality, but how many, did LeBron really go to Miami for the first time because of American Airlines Arena?
It was South Beach. So
you
got to recreate that atmosphere.
Yeah, to that point, I'm guessing that Kevin Durant did not go to Golden State because he liked the facilities. Mm-hmm. Granted, if they were crap, he might have stayed away. But I'm guessing that very few professional athletes actually go play for a team because of the stadium or arena. They might go for the city. Mm-hmm. Or the area, but not specifically for the ballpark or the building they will play in.
Here's an idea for the parody, at least though you were talking about taking his talents to South Beach. Just thinking, we've talked a lot about the different leagues, but focusing on the NBA, you really think too, when did this mindset of I think the first time I ever heard the term the Big Three was when Boston started. I guess it was
Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and
Ray Allen. It was back in 2006, I believe, is about when it started. I'm not a Celtics fan, so I don't trust me on those numbers. I know it's been a while, but even we've talked salary caps and other contract things. You could even, if you're one of these leagues where you're trying to force parity, because honestly, if the NBA keeps going like it's going, and you just know that it's going to be whatever West team has the most players and whatever East team has LeBron each year, it is gonna struggle. But you could have not only salary caps, but position. salary caps within the team to where you could say you can't have more than 3 people make over this line. And then it spreads out the love, like we're saying, to where it evens it out. And I'm not the biggest fan of forced parity. I don't think if you had to like do a draft where like you think about little league teams,
I wouldn't do it to where you assign players.
Well, see, but the NBA is gonna be very interesting to watch. Sports have changed dramatically. I think we'd all agree with that. It's very commercialized. It's very image driven.
Oh, it's
which league has the
market.
best face recognition?
Right now, I'd say the NBA.
Oh yeah. They get the leg up. They don't have to wear any kind of helmet.
Yeah, basically. That's the reason. There's no headgear.
Right.
I get baseball caps. Okay, that doesn't really obscure your face, but yeah, I mean, the players are very visible.
They're very socially aware.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they are playing to the millennial generation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's the rap star culture or whatever.
Well,
you're playing to a certain generation of people here that are about the image, not the game itself.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So the NBA might be able to sustain it. It'll be very interesting to watch, and I'm really scared if they can, and watch how other leagues copy it.
Yeah, because that's...
Well, then you're really just taking the sport, and it's not even a sport at that point. It's a media circus.
Right, which is... I want to talk about the Big Three maybe in a future episode. Have you guys watched any of the Big Three?
No, not yet. I want to read more about it as well as try and get into watching it. I don't think I have access to it right now. But
right. So the Big Three right now is a bunch of older, tired guys.
Yep.
Come back. It's the glory days of basketball. They have a very interesting opportunity. They have the Vegas Arena booked the same night for their championship games as the McGregor-Mayweather fight. So if you would take that day and sell it to the fight, you could probably make $50 million easily.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's 10% or whatever of what they're projecting to make. They're like $500 million. So it's 10 or it's not anything. If you take that $50 million and you say to the college kids coming out, you get 5 of them or whatever, and say, we'll give you $10 million guaranteed. Or you find 2 kids and say, you get $25 million guaranteed to come play in our league. In this superstar image-driven era, could that league, the way it's formatted, because you don't have a city, the league just travels and you play games.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no city affiliation.
Mm-hmm.
Could they just jump in and get 2 or 3 of these superstars, pay them a crap ton of money up front, and then just keep raking it in?
That's a possibility. Now, some athletes, I know this just from hearing interviews, they hate traveling. So if all you're doing is traveling...
But it's only like 12 games or something.
Yeah.
It's not a long season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but granted, now it might be to where some of the superstars, they want to play more. I mean, they want to play more than that for... I mean, they wouldn't scoff at the money.
If they're throwing you $25 million for 12 games... I would have a hard time saying no.
I would do it, but I'm about as wide as they come, so...
Right. So
got no ups.
To me, that would be very interesting to watch. They have a very unique opportunity to try and do something different. Because, I mean, you throw in a superstar in that league. The game's pretty fun to watch. They said, hey, we're a gimmick sport. We're going to put a 4-point shot in.
Yeah.
I mean, so
but you're doing 3-on-3 basketball.
Right.
I mean, so...
and it's going to be in the Olympics, so the sport's going to get exposure.
Yeah.
So...
now, are they going to play the same league rules in the Olympics? Or
I'm not sure what the exact Olympic rules are going to be. I know you only get like a 4-man roster in the Olympics. And I think it's a 10-minute game.
The Olympics will take everything you love about your favorite sport and just absolutely take a dump on it. That's what I've learned. unless your favorite sport's like swimming, gymnastics, or track. But
yeah, so
all the big American team sports that are in the Olympics, it's a shadow of its normal self.
Basketball is coming back to NBA basketball, I think, to the detriment of it. I like the European style of basketball.
Well, I don't mind what I'm talking about is, like the whole U23 roster, like in soccer.
Oh, for soccer. But that's only for men.
Yeah, for men. But I know there was talk that they were going to try and do that with the basketball as well. But I'm like,
that would actually help the United States. We have a bigger talent pool under 23.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree, but It all goes to money and marketing.
Well, we kind of veered off
sorry.
contracts a little bit, but that's okay. We're a sports podcast.
Contracts and money are kind of go hand in hand.
Yep. And hey, it's all about reform, and even like we said with the big three, that could change the way the NBA looks. And it's all about these other, even alternative ideas. You think about what's really going to reach in and to change these sports. But we'll go ahead and move on. We might revisit this topic again, just doing different aspects of the contracts, different angles. But we want to jump into our Positive Star of the Week segment. Again, remind you, sponsored by MoosleyHats.com. Would love for you to go give them a shot. We say this every time, but we really do mean it. Love the product they're putting out, and love they're joining us alongside of us. So check them out, MoosleyHats.com. I've spelled it enough already. Watch our other episodes. You can catch that up.
We'll throw a graphic for you.
Yeah, we'll make it happen. For this week's Positive Star, though, it's a little bit bitter for me, but I recognize off the field positivity more so even for the players that I don't particularly like some of the on-field gimmicks. But Marshawn Lynch, Beast Mode, is taking on to where he's going to give away 2,000 free water park tickets to the city's youth population in San Jose. And the reason this one stuck out to me is a lot of times you see sports stars, athletes, celebrities, those sorts of things. And when they do things for kids, it's either visit them in the hospital or show up at their school and read. And those are both great things. I love those. But to have someone really step in and say, I'm going to be more than that, and I just want to create fun. Like he's not knocking education, not knocking medical things in a hospital, but saying I want to provide fun for kids. Because you think about what kids really remember, like your best childhood memories, the times you got to go crazy somewhere, and for him giving out, and they price the tickets. The average price of the ticket is $29. So for his estimated package for what he spent out was $56,000. And I know for someone like Beast Mode,
that's chump change.
It's not a whole lot of money, but
although truth be told, the park probably gave him a little bit of a discount.
Right? Oh, you want to buy that many? Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, we'll give you a package deal there. We'll throw in some free.
I'm not in leisure management.
Snack bar coupons,
right. But he's definitely buying into the hometown hero aspect now. Yeah. He's the coming home. He really wants to put out. I mean, there's been several analysts I've seen are projecting him to lead the league in rushing this year.
So there's our fantasy preview for the episode.
Carr Lynch combination.
Yeah, and this isn't his first act either. He's done other things where he's hosted clinics for underprivileged kids, free clinics, I should mention, as well as offering one of the things that popped out to me was free haircuts for youths getting good grades. So there goes back to the aspect of
I wonder
education.
how good of a barber he is. Or
I don't know. I mean, if he's the one cutting, then it's free for a reason. I don't know. He could be a wonderful hairstylist.
He's had a year off now.
Yeah, he could be a phenomenal barber. I don't know.
But just really love that idea, and especially bringing the aspect of fun to me for kids is really cool.
Yeah, I think he'll do pretty well. All right, so we're going to switch over. We skipped this last week because we talked so long about the NFL's minor league system that we really hope happens one day.
It will.
Believe it.
Speak it into action. We're going to go wonky rules. So I'll ask you guys this. In college football and the NFL, what is the largest margin of victory you can have in overtime?
Well, the normal person would probably say 6 points.
Right.
Or maybe 7. Or
college,
7 or 8.
College, you got to kick the extra point if it's 7 or 8. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I would assume 7, but I'm sure it's going to be something different.
It will be 9. Because remember now in the NFL, if you drive down and kick the field goal on that first drive, the other team gets the ball. Mm-hmm. So if they then turn around and throw a pick 6 or a fumble 6, 6 points on the board, there's your 9-point margin of victory. So keep that in mind should another Super Bowl go to overtime and you happen to have a few juice boxes you were looking to throw around and you want to make a really outlandish bet because that'll have really, really bad odds. Just saying.
You could probably get 10,000 to 1 on that
Yeah,
before the game.
Anything is possible with Atlanta being up 28-3. So I'm taking that bet
Right.
when I see it next time.
And as Kevin Malone from The Office says, anytime you get 10,000 to 1 odds, you take it.
Yes.
So I think we're going to rotate into our sound off, send off.
Yep.
We have a bit of a unique situation this week because we all want to talk about the same thing.
It's horrible.
Oh, it's
So
a nightmare.
I'll just throw this out there. Our local AAA baseball team has had a renaming contest. They are the AAA Gwinnett Braves, AAA affiliated.
They are currently
the
Gwinnett Braves.
Gwinnett Braves. And for those of you who aren't our immediate friends and family who watch this, Gwinnett is the county which they actually play in Metro Atlanta.
It's the 2 o'clock region of Atlanta.
Basically.
So
they named it after the county as opposed to the city. Right. So anyway, in an effort to avoid confusion with the Atlanta Braves, they decided they needed to rebrand their team, which was silly because the Braves, not counting the Braves, they have a AA team also called the Braves. They have a low single A team called the Braves. They have a rookie league team called the Braves.
See, they're doing reform just for reform at this point.
Yes.
There was no motive behind the reform.
So
Sell more merch.
Probably money.
Yes. You have to rebuy that jersey now. So in typical modern day fashion, they held the renaming contest where they allowed fans to submit ideas, and then I guess a panel of old guys smoking cigars in a room that are probably responsible for half the conspiracy theories in America decided on the finalists. And they are gloriously, gloriously awful.
And playing into the obesity of the South.
So, lay it on us. What are they? What are our options?
The options were laid out as follows. Do you want me to, since we're all doing it together, do you want me to give the reasons for each one, or just
if you can do, just quick summary.
a quick summary? Okay.
I think you should go bottom to top.
Bottom to top. Okay. I mean, there's no good order. They're all so bad. Starting in number 6, I'll jump in. The Gwinnett Sweet Teas. Sweet tea, Georgia, self-explanatory. The Gwinnett Lamb Chops.
Well, let's explain it, because if you're from the north, you don't know what sweet tea is.
In the South, we put tea over ice, and then we dump enough sugar in it to turn it into maple syrup.
If you do it that way, science is against you.
Yeah, it all settles to the bottom. You turn it into a snow globe.
Right. You go first, your tea, and if you've ever had sweet tea and Ruby Tuesdays in Georgia, they take 3 cups of sugar for those vats and dump it in. So you're basically drinking mud water with sugar and then pour it over ice. So yeah.
So sorry, any of our northern listeners. Don't mean to exclude. I forget that
for our Boston friends, that's how we do tea in the South.
I didn't know what it was till 2004.
So number 5, we have the Gwinnett Lamb Chops. I can't even read the way they describe them. They do really weird puns and try and make it to where they're a cute name.
Read the puns. Read the pun.
I'm just going to read the first one. It just says a chop off the old block. I can't go further than that.
All right. To speaking of that, some unpaid social media intern for the team is so proud of themselves right now. Right. And they need not be.
But if they would have just kept the chops, I'd actually would have been all right with that
if
name.
you went the Gwinnett Chops, I would have voted for that.
Right.
And it matches with the theme of the Braves.
You don't need to tie barbecue into it.
The Braves have the chop. Or if you wanted to go to, for those of you who remember the obscure PBS show from the 90s, Lamb Chops Play Along.
Which goes into number 4, which is the Gwinnett Hush Puppies. And they're not the food, because that would be too obvious, I guess. It's talking about stealthy hunting dogs. Again, not going to read the pun. We've got number 3.
For the record, I have never heard of a hunting dog called a hush puppy.
No, but there's a restaurant called Cookout around here with amazing hush puppies.
There is.
Indeed. Agreed.
Shout out Cookout.
Number 3, maybe a potential future sponsor. Gwinnett Big Mouths for number 3. Again, the state fish of Georgia, the largemouth bass.
Then why not the Gwinnett Largemouths?
I guess Big Mouth just sounds a little bit more marketable. Number 2, the Gwinnett Gobblers. Again, more food hunting.
Was the committee hungry when they came out with this list?
Yes.
For sure. And lastly, the Gwinnett Buttons, and Buttons being in honor of the Gwinnett County namesake. Button Gwinnett was one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, and also one of the first two the first two senators from the state of Georgia.
What kind of logo are you gonna have with a freaking button?
Well,
they have the shirts with buttons on them already.
That actually brings a unique marketing idea. They could do the Nationals do the president's races. They could have. Granted, you probably wouldn't recognize them by sight, but they have 4 signers of the Declaration of Independence, and one of them is John Hancock, who always loses.
Right.
Just like the Teddy Roosevelt or whatever.
Well, the problem I have with it is it goes into, and I like the concept that minor league teams are getting these more unique names. I'm just to pull
I get
a
it.
few.
You want to be unique. You don't want to be cliche.
You want to be unique, and you want to have something maybe that means a little bit more to the cities. You have things like the Owls, the Biscuits, the Lug Nuts, the Lookouts. You have things like even the Jumbo Shrimp now in Jacksonville, which that one's still on the line for us here.
And as I've had friends go, they do not have good Jumbo Shrimp to eat. Fail.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna at least serve a great shrimp cocktail, if you're gonna, I mean, if you do that and have a great shrimp cocktail, that's at least passable.
So if they are the lamb chops, they better have some darn good lamb there.
Yep.
Some
And if they're
gyros.
the Gobblers, they need to have the best turkey legs ever. But with that being aside, I like the uniqueness, but these names, with the exception, I understand maybe the leaning towards the Buttons with the namesake of Gwinnett. That's more of a
I heard one comment that the people in charge really want it to be the Gwinnett Buttons, so they didn't put 5 of the worst ideas they could find out for the other 5 to.
I don't think you can get 6 worse options than these. Personally,
the Gwinnett Baseball Club would have been better. No nickname, just make it like a soccer team.
Yeah,
Gwinnett
let's go. European. What we were saying earlier about European soccer.
Right.
Yeah,
Let's
model after that. Well, do you guys have any? I know we said the chops. Are there any other ideas that you guys could have, especially being in?
If you
Georgia?
really wanted something local, Lake Lanier is a huge thing in the greater metro area. It's kind of it's probably the biggest recreation area. I mean, you could have gone to Gwinnett Laniers or something like that.
I mean, a Laker.
Well,
It's a little different usage, but
well, remember the Los Angeles Lakers were originally the Minnesota Lakers, which is the land
Right.
of 10,000 lakes. But
right.
That would be a possibility. You could go to the Gwinnett traffic jams. That would be hugely appropriate.
Yep. I mean, you have a lot of other attractions too. You think about things like Stone Mountain. I mean, you could have the
Stoners. Hey, man.
We're not in Colorado.
That is the most epic 420 promotion in the league.
And you got Sweetwater right down the road.
Yeah, man. Baseball's amazing, man.
Well, we're all very. It's distraught to me. I can't imagine how these. They said they had over 4,000 recommendations with over 900 unique recommendations.
And those were the best they could find.
We're going to be like the polka dot, the high school, whatever, like West Virginia.
What was Delta State University? I believe they're the Fighting Okra.
Yeah. We were actually looking these up at work the other day, the worst. There's a Texas high school football team, the Unicorns. They better be real good.
Yeah.
The Unicorns of Love. They're an esports club in Europe. But that does beg the question. If these actually were the best, I'm not saying they are. What were some of the rejected
I'm sure
ones?
you get some inappropriate
Yeah,
ones.
there were probably some very inappropriate ones, but...
Yeah.
I don't think we could really salvage this. That's how bad it is.
Yeah, I think it's time to wrap this sucker up. I hope y'all have had fun with us. We'll throw up a graphic how to get in touch with us. sportsreform@gmail.com, by phone at 530-377-6787. More simply, 530-3sports. On Twitter, at The Sports Reform, or on Facebook. Reach out to us. Let us know what you're thinking. Future episode topics.
Or to bust on the new suggestions.
Yeah, follow us on Twitter and let's
doing it.
let's jump on that. Let's see if we can get that trending worldwide. That'd be pretty fun. For Scott, JT, and myself, have a great day.